to have these out.
Good thinking.
Since,
All right. Now live from Dogleg Brewery, it's time for You Can't Brew That on Television. Now here are your hosts, the Reverend Ryan Bono and Kyle LaPointe.
What's going on, Rich?
Howdy, Internet.
Rich,
Welcome back in the new studio.
Yeah, we got... hopefully we moved for the last time.
Well, we did move again.
We moved within the new space, so
For like 30 minutes, and then our whole studio moved, so...
It was awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So, good evening, Internet. I am the Reverend Ryan Bono. What's your nickname tonight, Kyle?
I'm Kyle Kilometer.
Kyle Kilometer LaPointe. He's apparently measuring in communist units this evening. Yes. And so we are coming to you live from Dogleg Brewery in Fort Worth, Texas, as we do every Monday, and we try to help you bridge the gap between frat boy and beer snob.
Right.
What are we up to tonight, Kyle?
Well, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to talk about a beer that you brought back. This is
brought that back from Asheville, North Carolina. I think I picked that up in somewhere in North Carolina.
So we've got a North Carolina commercial tasting. So we're going to go outside of the beers that we can get here in the Texas market. We've got a home brew tasting,
and unlike last time, we actually made sure to remember the awful bucket. So if your beer is awful, it is going in the awful bucket, and we promised absolute truthfulness on your beer tasting, and you're going to get it.
So if your beer tastes awful, we consider it awful. O-F-F-A-L.
O-F-F-L, awful.
No, really. O-F-F-A-l. Look it up. It's a dictionary word for bile.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So, it's fun.
What have we got on tap for trivia tonight? I believe it's your turn to
stump
the Reverend.
So what I did was I come up with something to honor our soldiers out there and like to say Happy Memorial Day to everybody. And if you know any soldiers or anybody serving in our armed forces or who has served in our armed forces, make sure you say thanks and we appreciate what they do. We had dinner with a few tonight. We're very thankful to have those as friends and have them protecting us. So there it is. With that being said, the question is about the leader of our military, the Commander-in-Chief. So, Rich, will you go ahead and roll that trivia question?
You got it. Trivia tonight, Bono. What president of the U.S. was also a failed brewer? I'm assuming that meant also in addition to being the president, not also like you.
I guess I would have to go with... No, Barack Obama wouldn't brew beer. He would make wine or cider or something. He's a little...
Yeah, he is a little...
I don't know. I'm going to have to give that some thought. So, all right. Those of you at home, we're not going to find out until the end of the episode.
While he tries to scan his mind for the 44 presidents that have...
Grace Grover, Cleveland. I have no idea. We'll look at it later. Okay. First, are we gonna taste commercial? Oh no, we're tasting homebrew first.
Tasting the homebrew first.
All right.
And
this is our second homebrew tasting here at You Can't Brew That.
First thing we do for troubleshooting, which is also our topic today. First thing you do when troubleshooting beer, listen to it get opened.
So let's go ahead and listen. Nice.
Good sound. Good sound.
And
that's the first problem.
That is the first problem.
Yes, we have a gusher.
I'm going to go with overcarbonated on this one.
Yes, let me go ahead and... paper towel.
Do you think BP could stop that gusher?
I think we should pour dirt on top of it.
Hold on, I'll start drinking it real quick.
Alrighty. So, if you want to get your beer judged poorly, overcarbonate the crap out of it. What causes that type of a problem, Bono?
I'm going to go with bottle fermentation and using way too much sugar in the fermentation.
Way too much priming sugar when you're bottling.
Way too much priming sugar. And it is still going. It could be too because I shook it up right before we started the show.
Well, that was probably mean of you. But this is definitely the first beer to make it in the awful bucket. We haven't even tasted it yet, and it's in the awful bucket. We don't even know how it tastes, and it's in the awful bucket. Right. Hole in one.
All right.
Don't want to cover those up.
Yeah, we're going to want to keep the paper towels around.
Yeah.
How about we let that chill while we taste the commercial beer?
going to need more glasses to taste a commercial beer.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless you want to bottle it. Dude, come on now. I get some off odors, I'll be honest.
A little bit, yeah.
Little sulfurish, but that may not be a bad thing.
This is strawberry wheat, by the way.
Strawberry wheat,
Yeah.
so sulfur could be okay in a wheat beer.
Yeah, especially you're using canned strawberries, you're going to get some sulfury type stuff.
Oh, and you get sulfur from the yeast on a wheat beer as well.
Yeah.
Even if you use an American wheat.
Yeah,
you
so
get a
I
little
think
sulfur.
it's within style.
Yeah. I don't get a lot of the strawberry.
No, I'm not getting any at all.
No. You kind of want that when you're brewing something with a special...
if you're using a special ingredient, guys, you really want to try to push them up into the nose.
Yeah.
I haven't had this yet, but it's my understanding that the strawberry is very...
Cool.
It's my understanding that the strawberry is very subtle. And so...
And that's okay, if that's what you're going for. It doesn't have to
It doesn't have to kick you in the face, so... if you're looking for just a subtle accent, I don't think it needs to be in the nose as much. But if it's something that you really want to be part of your, like a big part of your flavor profile, you want to try to get it in the nose as well.
It's I don't get much of the wheat.
I don't either. I get the strawberry
I do
right
get
on
the strawberry.
right on the tip,
Like right when you get the first
right when
one.
it hits your tongue. Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, the strawberry comes through.
Yeah, I'm not getting the wheat either.
No,
But there's some sweetness there that could.
There's some sweetness, and maybe it's masked by the strawberry.
Yeah.
But it tastes like I'll be honest. Maybe it could be a little bit under attenuated.
Yeah, there's definitely
sweetness.
some residual sweetness in there.
And that happens from time to time. You get a beer that it's supposed to. No, basically, I mean the whole premise with beer. You start out with so much sugar in there, and so you've got say you've got enough gravity to get 6% of alcohol. Well, if it's only made to ferment 75%, well then you're going to have 4.5% alcohol beer. But if you have something that gets under attenuated, say it's supposed to attenuate 75%, that yeast strain does that. It's only going to attenuate to 50%. Well, you're going to have a 3% alcohol beer with a lot more sugar because the sugar didn't ferment. That's what's supposed to go away. When you get
the under attenuation though works really well for
Yeah,
this
it's not
because
bad.
it makes the beer sweet without being overly sweet. This is a nice brew.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And I think this actually came out of a Mr. Beer.
Yeah.
And
like
we said a couple months ago, you can brew using just about any equipment you want. And just because we're going all grain doesn't mean you can't make good beer using Mr. Beer. And it looks like this guy's done it.
Yeah.
So
And
cheers.
What would you classify this as?
As far as category,
If you're going to go actual category to taste, when you take a big swig, and this is a wheat beer, so you're supposed to be able to just chew it back. You take a big swig, and that strawberry is strong on the flavor profile.
I'm gonna go American with fruit.
That's
Special ingredient because
it would have to be a special because of that.
Yeah, it would have to be special, but I think if you're gonna put it in a half category, you would put it in an American half.
Yeah, and
because it doesn't have like the clovey, banana-y type of stuff that you expect out of a German or a Belgian.
I would not stress the wheat at all as part of the ingredient list in this.
Just call it a fruit beer.
Just call it a fruit beer, and you could call it a fruit cream ale, something like that.
Oh yeah, this would do well as a cream ale.
Yeah,
good call.
Because with a lot of these competitions, you have to actually go through and name your category when you have a specialty beer like that.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing because it may be a good tasting beer, but you called it a wheat beer, and there's no wheat characteristics, so you get knocked down points because of that. But you call it a cream ale, real basic beer. There's not much corn flavor from a cream ale, but you know the fact that you got strawberries on there, you shouldn't taste.
That's what's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. I was trying to place it. There's some definite corn in there.
Yeah. It's
all right.
I actually didn't get that until you even said it, but strawberry. You say it's a light strawberry taste, but
it kicks you right up in the
not
front.
at all. It's not at all light.
It
goes away quick.
Swig. Yeah, it goes away real quick, but it definitely kicks you right in the front.
Yeah, good job. Keep brewing. For sure.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for sending that in.
Yeah, send it
very nice.
Anytime. And only probably about 3 or 4 ounces ended up to be awful because of the nice gusher that we got there, and it wasn't too bad of a gusher. That's also a plastic bottle, so the fact that it only.
I used to bottle and plastic bottle. I used to overcarbonate the bejesus out of it just because I could.
Yeah, because you can.
Yeah.
You're not worrying about because when you overcarbon a glass bottle, it's dangerous. It could blow up, and blowing up glass bottles for some reason isn't safe.
Yeah, you tried that once, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Blew up a bottle in my garage. We've been finding pieces of that bottle for the last 8 months.
Nice.
So
moving on, we've
troubleshooting.
Well, let's talk about some news first.
Okay.
We've got some news out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We talked about a couple weeks ago, but I want to bring it up again because this sounds really cool. And that is at the Tiber Creek Pub in Charlotte on June 12th, which is coming up, 2 weeks, I guess, from Saturday? Yeah, two weeks from this past Saturday, the Tiber Creek Pub in Charlotte, North Carolina. They're having Rhythm and Brews, and it's going to be local jazz artists there in jazz and blues artists there in North Carolina, and it's going to be local craft breweries. And the proceeds are going to go to benefit various charities that support Americans with disabilities. So good music, good beer, good cause. I think you could definitely not go wrong with this. So those of you in North Carolina, those of you close to North Carolina, definitely check this out. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, Nick Hubble, if you happen to be tuning in, I know you're in that area, so check it out.
Now
it's worth a little drive.
We've got a little less fortunate news. We want to talk to y'all really briefly about the Best Damn Beer that we've come to the decision that we need to postpone. And I think part of it could have to do with the fact that we've never arranged a brew tournament before.
Yeah.
So we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants here. But
we thought that the thing would kind of run itself, but as we've figured out, we really need to do a lot more work.
Definitely.
And so the fact that we've both been busy at work and been trying to produce a good show, and meanwhile renovating the brewery and getting everything going here, we think it's better to push it later in the year. And it's going to be a big push. We're not talking a little push.
Yeah, it's not going to be a week or two. We're looking at probably later this summer, early this fall, something like that. And something we hadn't considered is the number. Another thing we hadn't considered is the number of brew tournaments back to back in this area. I think it kind of left people in like a brew tournament fatigue.
Yeah, and this year with the fact that the home brew club that we're members of was the ones putting on the biggest brewing competition, the Blue Bonnet, the biggest one in the world. It kind of fatigued a lot of the people in our club. Most of the folks have only brewed a couple of times since, if at all, since Blue Bonnet in March. I mean, you end up, when you're trying to go guns a-blazing for a big competition like that, sometimes it'll wear you out.
Absolutely it will. And we're going to be attending a competition that we actually went to last year. We've mentioned it on the show before. It's called Iron Mash.
Yep. And
it's similar to Iron Chef. You show up, you're given ingredients, you have to make beer with them. More on that, I think, in the next few weeks. But I think that Iron Mash is going to be the perfect time to announce the date of the new Best Damn Beer. I almost called it the You Can't Brew That Beer.
Yeah, the Best Damn Beer, though, we think it's going to be a really good competition. We got all our stuff set up for it. And Brennan Stubblefield with Stubblefield's Designs is putting together the stainless steel keg as our prize right now. And I already sent him word right before the show that, hey, we may be pushing this back, so don't rush it. The guy is an amazing artist and does some amazing work on airbrushing and things of that nature, and he's going to custom paint this keg. That's our prize for the Best Damn Beer.
And then once we've got that keg in hand and custom painted, we're going to be able to parade it around.
Put it right here. You can see it.
I think that's going to draw some serious interest once people see how serious we are about putting on a good competition. Because we don't do things half-ass here.
No.
That's just not us. And I think that there's a lot of people out there who do, and people just, they just don't realize that we're serious about this. So we're gonna get things up and running here pretty quick.
And part of that's my fault too. When I thought that the Celtic competition was going to be an early May event, and ends up the Celtic pushed all the way into even next weekend. The awards and everything is at the Scottish Festival in Arlington next weekend. And I did not want to step on any toes of our home brew clubs and our local brew clubs for those kind of competitions. That was not the intent. So we figured if we back off and regroup and do this the right way, we'll be in good shape for going up in the future. So we're thinking maybe September.
Yeah.
kind of our thoughts right
be
now.
a nice way to kick off the fall.
Yeah.
I don't know about Kyle, but the fall is my favorite time of year, so it'd be a nice way to kick off best time of year. So while we're pouring this up, we're going to go ahead and introduce tonight's topic. I received an email from a friend of mine whose husband has gotten into homebrewing here these last few years, and she knows that I've got the show, and she knows that I'm really into it, so they've been having a problem with the flavor of their beer, and they've had several batches come out poorly. So she was just...
That's not fun either, by the way.
It is not.
When you lose a whole batch...
It's horribly frustrating, and I can only imagine what they went through. I mean, we lost, 2 batches that went lactic as they were sitting, so we ended up getting most of those 2 batches, and it killed us.
Yeah.
But they're having their beers come out of the bottle or out of the keg, and she said that they were tasting kind of like they had kind of like a vegetal taste.
That is not good.
Never fun. And she described one of them as almost being like suet. Kind of the process that I went through with
chocolate in there, man. That's good.
Kind of the process that I went through with her, just trying to help her troubleshoot this beer. Oh wow, yeah, that's real chocolatey.
Yeah.
Roasty. Oh, tonight, by the way, we're trying Duck Rabbit Baltic Porter, and this is from the Carolinas somewhere. Farmville, North Carolina, which sounds like a really hoppin' place.
Megan wants me to turn the label on this beer. I'm going to keep turning. Oh, okay.
There we go. There's the label.
Only one of these bottles returned with the labels.
Matt chimes in and says Farmville is 20 minutes from Raleigh, so if you're close to Raleigh and you want an amazing porter, holy cow. This is one of the better beers I've had.
That's Superman's hometown, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes, that's right.
It's a very dry beer.
It's dry. There's a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
Warmth in this. The alcohol is very detectable, and in a Baltic Porter, that is actually a desirable quality.
Yeah, it's good.
And Baltic Porter is, as the name sounds, it's a style that originated in the Baltics. What happened was England was exporting a lot of its porter beers to different parts of the world, and they got these in the Baltic states. They're bordering the Mediterranean, and people there were quite taken with the porters coming out of England, decided to make their own, and they sort of twisted the style a little bit.
And the thing about the Baltic is that it's one of the first properties on a monopoly board. So I mean, it's very inexpensive to buy that property and get invested in Baltic. So Baltic Porter just made sense for people.
Matt informs us that the brewers at Duck Rabbit sing songs to the beer while it's brewing. That's something that we've never tried here at Dogleg, but if you...
We both sang before, so I think we could do something
I've never... That. Yeah, we could try it.
We could sing to our fermented beer.
We both did choir in high school, so we could whip something together, I think.
We could do that.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, if this is the results, if that's what it takes, I'll sing to the beer.
This was very nice. And I mean, it's a hard hitter, man.
It tastes... this tastes like it's lagered. Like
no, you just gotta turn that and you'll keep turning it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is a bottom fermented beer because you can taste some of that crispness that you don't get with an ale.
Exactly, and so the flavor profiles that are there are very pronounced. Yet the fact that it's a 9% alcohol beer, it should have more sugar.
Yeah, it should.
So the fact that it doesn't have that much sugar, we talked about attenuation earlier. Well, this is like the opposite. This may be supposed to ferment
a little over attenuated, but I think for the style it works very nicely.
Yeah, over attenuating, under attenuating, those can be problems that you'll have to troubleshoot, but they can also be things that are just totally okay. We actually, both of the beers that we made here a while back, the Scottish Red and the English IPA were both over attenuated.
Yeah, they
hit probably 78-80%, somewhere around there.
They
were supposed to be about 70.
It worked very well for both beers.
They're good beers. And we'll talk about, we'll use this as an example for troubleshooting right now.
Yeah.
The English IPA, we made a mistake, and I'll go ahead and announce this to everybody not to do it. We had some Chinook hops, which are a high alpha acid American hop, and we put it just in the early seconds of the boil just to get a little extra alpha acid we would have to use 4 ounces of a Fuggles hop or something along that of the English variety to get what 1 ounce of that did.
And remember what we discussed back during our hop episode is that the longer your hops sit in the boil, the less the flavor profile you're getting, and the more of just the sheer bitterness.
Right.
And so we decided to go with a high alpha acid hop, the Chinook,
Right.
and put it at the very beginning of the boil, expecting the flavor profile to boil off. And it didn't really work out so well for us.
I mean, the flavor profile's still there.
It is, despite our best efforts, it's still.
And I think part of the fact that beer over attenuated means that the highlights are going to come from some of the flavors that can't be attenuated away, like a hop. So what we did to counteract that, we probably had a beer on the 50 scale of judging, the sommelier of beer type judging with BJCP. It was about a 30, low 30s.
Give or take.
And what I did was took, 2 ounces of Fuggles, and that's a English hop that's supposed to be there, dry hopped them. So those went into a hop sack, straight into the keg. As it was in the secondary, pulled those right back out, and started making the beer, or after, I think about 5 days, I pulled that out. And that added such a different flavor from the citrusness that you were getting that shouldn't have been there. The floral came out a little more, and it still doesn't meet style.
Absolutely not.
Because
it's a lot closer than it was.
Much, much closer. And so now you'd call it a mid to high 30s.
Yeah.
So a little tweak like that, dry hopping with a few ounces of Fuggles, and we had contemplated doing that anyway. So troubleshooting and being able to figure out how you can make something that didn't turn out what you wanted it into something that is what you want, it's a great skill to have. And there's, we'll talk about it. We'll discuss it here. If you've got any questions.
Yeah, any questions at all. Kind of like the one that we're actually going to discuss here in a minute. Any questions at all, call us, text us. Most of you guys know us. We'll help. We're not going to wait till the show to help you with your problem.
Right.
We'll do what I did. This actually took several weeks to figure out. And so...
You forgot to ask me, that's why.
Yeah, I forgot to ask him. Just contact us, and we'll help you out.
Yeah.
Until then...
What is the problem?
Until then, let's just talk about the process. Once you find out that a beer has a vegetal or a sewage-like taste, well, what's your number one culprit going to be?
First thing you're going to think about is going to be sanitation.
Absolutely.
Almost every off flavor, sanitation.
Because remember, like we said a few episodes ago, cleanliness is absolutely next to godliness when you're brewing.
Yep.
You got to keep everything spotless, because the littlest bit of bacteria can ruin a fantastic beer.
Yep.
And so... we looked at their sanitation procedures, and I made a few recommendations, and they did a second batch, and it still came out tasting with that like a rotten vegetal type of flavor. And by now, of course, they're ready to quit brewing.
Yeah.
Like they don't even want to bother anymore.
Well, you spend 6 hours in a brewing process, and 2 hours racking, and 3 hours.
And then it sits in your house for weeks, and you're anticipating, and it comes out, and it tastes like garbage.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Not fun at all. So the next thing we looked at, and actually it was while I was researching our hop episode, this hit me, and so I called her, and I said, hey, ask your husband how he's storing his hops. Because when you store your hops improperly, if you give them too much air, they can oxygenate. And oxygen, of course, is the enemy of beer. Except at the very, very beginning, oxygen will kill the flavor of your beer.
And oxidized hops are pretty gross.
Yeah, they're pretty nasty.
They start tasting really cheesy, and they smell like bitter hops, but also like cheese. So you get that floral, bitter smell, but cheese on top of it just doesn't work. It really doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely not. And so we took a look at this, and she ran it by her husband, and they looked at how they were storing their hops and came to the conclusion that wasn't it. Okay. Because they were vacuum packing their hops, they were treating them properly,
keeping them in the fridge or freezer.
So we were stumped. And a few weeks ago, I don't know why this even occurred to me. Oh, it occurred to me because I was helping the girls make their cider. Mm-hmm. And the girls made about 1.5 gallons of cider, the harem of the dog leg, as we're referring to them. Mm-hmm. They made about 1.5 gallons of cider, and they put it in the fermenter, and we were talking about having a secondary for them to put it in. And when we went to pick one, we had to pick a small secondary.
Right. There's only a gallon and a half of liquid. We don't have a whole. Our secondaries are 5 gallons.
Exactly. And when you put a gallon and a half of liquid into a 6-gallon fermenter, it's okay for the primary.
Right.
Because there's going to be so much action in there. There's going to be so much fermentation.
The CO2
is going to rapidly fill up that entire chamber and expel all the oxygen.
Yeah. It'll jettison everything that's not CO2 in beer.
In the secondary, there's little to no fermentation going on. In the secondary, you're clarifying. You've got all the schmutz settling out to the bottom.
And that's actually a misnomer. A lot of people don't even like to call that secondary fermenter.
Yeah, they call it a clarifier.
Clarifier or bright tank, something like that, because all it's doing at that point is it's crystallizing the beer. It's chewing up the final sugars.
Yeah, and so that's when it hit me. So I called her and I ran this idea by her, and she called her husband, and it turns out they had been making 4-gallon batches and putting them in a 7-gallon secondary. So what you've got is you've got a secondary fermenter that's only about that full.
Looks like that.
And all of that is oxygen. And the oxygen...
The worst thing for beer is oxygen.
Just eating their beer, because there's nothing to stop it. There's no CO2 coming out of there to expel it, and that's what their deal was. So, troubleshooting...
It can oxygenate, but also that oxygen carries bacteria.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the biggest problem, and it can carry... If he did that here, it may have a different off flavor. If he did that where he's at, it's got this one off flavor. It goes down to Corpus Christi, he's got a different off flavor, because whatever the air happens to have in it, that's going to contribute the flavors.
So, and so ways of getting around that are you can either use a more appropriately sized secondary,
like a 5-gallon secondary.
Which is the most obvious choice, or and it's something I ran by her because they're also kegging, is you can just blast it with CO2 after you pour it. And you just blast CO2 in there, it expels all the oxygen, seal that sucker up.
Do what we do.
Yeah.
You can go in there and secondary in a keg. It's a lot better than secondary in a full... Because, what they've got there is their primary fermentation vessel. So that they're locking up their primary fermentation vessel when they're switching over. But if they were to just put it in a keg, all they would have to do is put it in that keg and then put it into another keg when they're done. If they even want to do that. So if you put it in a keg as a secondary, let it actually clean out, pump the first couple of beers, it's going to put out all the schmutz, all the yeast cake that's left from there, it's going to come out. So you don't even really need to move it after you put it in a keg as a secondary.
Right.
If you leave it on the yeast cake long enough in the primary, and then you put it in a keg, it's in a great shape. In fact, one of the things we're going to try here, side comparison, and we'll make a show about this.
Oh, definitely. I think I know what you're getting at.
I want to do a 10-gallon batch, 5 gallons fermented in a keg, fermented primary in a keg, and we've got the equipment and everything for that to happen. And then I want a primary fermented in a glass carboy and see if the attenuation is different.
Yeah.
Because I'm worried that the lack of a yeast cake may cause some under attenuation in a keg, but it may not.
And we'll be able to accurately measure this by testing the specific gravity of the beer rather than just a taste test. Taste test is important too because we're going to be able to discern elements in there that just the hydrometer won't tell you. Like it might bring out different flavors.
And that's something that's kind of cool too. We can take that beer that we just tried. What was the name of the guy that brewed this beer?
That was Mike.
Mike, Faz's neighbor, right?
Faz's neighbor, Mike.
Well, Mike, what we can do is we can take your beer, we can figure out your final gravity. We can go look at that right now, take a hydrometer, take a read, and understand exactly what the final gravity was, and I bet it's about a 20. I bet it's a 10-20 there.
Yeah.
This is going to put me on my butt, man.
This is some serious stuff. That's why I'm giving
that
it to
9% is a misnomer. I don't think it's actually clocked anywhere in the single digits. But it's a really good beer.
It's fantastic. Yeah, anybody who has access to this beer, go buy it tonight. It is amazing.
Duck butter, that you just can't beat that. Oh, duck rabbit.
Before we close out, I want to do an episode about oxygenation in the future because there's so much more to it than just this troubleshooting bit that we talked about. There's actually beers out there that breweries that actually purposely oxygenate their beer.
Yep.
And so we'll discuss that, and we'll discuss some of the other flavors oxygenation can get. Let's make that next week's show. Next week, we're talking about oxygenation.
Oxygenation.
Oxygen.
Oxygen.
The nation of oxygen.
All right, that'll work.
Until then, we've got some trivia. Kyle asked us earlier, which president was a failed brewer?
Yep.
I'm going to guess that it wasn't any of the early presidents because those guys were all pretty damn good at brewing. So, oh, you made a face. I might be wrong. I'm gonna shoot down Obama. I'm gonna guess at W. I'm gonna go with George W. Bush.
Yeah, your first instincts were a little off. And it was and who actually did do brewing, but he did it in more of a homestead fashion. James Madison was actually an attempted brewery, started a brewery, and it failed and went under.
That explains a lot because James Madison actually wrote to Benjamin Franklin recommending to him that the United States establish a national brewery.
Yep.
Because they viewed at the time they viewed beer as the solution to drunkenness because they attributed bad behavior and lewdness and public misbehavior. They attribute that to liquor.
Because at the time they thought if you brewed a lager beer that you couldn't even get drunk off of that. I'd hate to see what the version of being drunk was back in those days.
There's no telling.
If they thought you couldn't get drunk off of beer.
So that makes a lot of sense because Madison he probably discovered he couldn't brew on his own. He couldn't hack it as a brewer, and he decided he would have.
He said, "Man, I can't hack it as a brewer, but I sure can run a country. So how about you go ahead and get a country to brew for me?"
That's interesting. I should have remembered that little bit about Madison. He was a character. I think probably let's look July 4th. Let's look at talking about some U.S. brewing history with the presidents.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, July 4th is coming up, so we'll figure out what show that is going to be around then, and we'll definitely do an episode about some of the presidents that used to brew. So,
okay, if you guys want to contact us, we're going to do our shows. One thing we did last week was we talked about coming up with our show topic during the show that we're doing. So the next week's show, the next week's show we'll be come up with today before we shut off our feed. So if we don't come up with it during the show like we did today, hang around, give us some ideas. We'll come up with a show topic for next week.
We're dedicated to bringing you guys a better show. We've run into a lot of problems, and it's distracted from the quality of the show. But we're set up now in a permanent location, so we're
with a permanent contact list, which we're going to go ahead and put up on the screen.
Which we'll put up right now. I'll go ahead and throw up that permanent contact list there.
So you can send all the emails. You can send emails out at webcast@doglegbrewery.com is the main email contact. Of course, they're on Facebook at facebook.com/doglegbrewery, all one word.
Yep.
And if you want to follow the Twitter or tweet back to us, we're just at doglegbrewery.
All right.
Yep.
So we're like I said, we're dedicated to bringing you guys a better show every week. So next week we're going to talk about oxygenation, and until then, please remember that we are not professionals.
So please try this at home.
Oh God, that is awful.
Answer though, George Washington. That's the same thing that Megan said.
That's what Megan. That was as good a guess as any. And George Washington was actually a successful brewer. He was pretty darn good at it, from what I understand.
Well, and like a lot of the early colonists, I mean, they just did it because that's how you made beer. I mean,
we're gonna talk a lot about the history of brewing in America during the show. I'm thinking we're gonna bring up some interesting nuggets around July 4th time.